Did we steal these buildings? The lost empire of Tartaria and the mud flood mystery history, we are told, is a linear progression. We started in caves, learned to farm, built stone huts, and slowly advanced toward the skyscrapers and smartphones of today. But there is a growing movement on the internet that challenges this fundamental narrative. It is a theory that asks you to walk down the streets of Chicago, London, or St. Petersburg and simply look down. Why do so many 19th century buildings have windows that are half buried in the ground? Why do the basements of these buildings look exactly like first floors that were swallowed by the earth? To the mainstream historian, these are just light wells or architectural quirks. But to a growing community of alternative historians, these are the scars of a global catastrophe known as the mud flood. This is the entry point into the strangest, most aesthetically compelling conspiracy theory of the modern age, the lost empire of Tartaria. The premise, a stolen past the core thesis of the Tartaria theory, is radical. It suggests that until the mid-19th century, roughly around the 1840s or 1850s, the world was united under a benevolent, technologically advanced global civilization called Great Tartaria. According to proponents, this civilization was not advanced in the way we are today. They didn't have iPhones or the internet. Instead, they possessed antiquitech technologies based on sound, vibration, and electromagnetic energy harvested from the ether. They claimed that the magnificent cathedrals, the star forts, and the Greco-Roman government buildings we see in Washington, D.C. or Paris were actually power plants designed to generate clean, free energy for the populace. Then, the theory goes, something happened. A cataclysm. A massive inundation of soil and liquid earth. The mud flood blanketed the world, burying the bottom floors of buildings and wiping out the population. The parasites, the current ruling elite, then emerged, dug out the upper floors, claimed the buildings as their own, and rewrote history to hide the existence of Tartaria. The evidence of the maps, where does the name come from? If you look at maps from the 15th to the 18th centuries, you will indeed see a vast territory across northern Asia labeled Grande Tartary or Tartaria. To historians, this was simply a geographical label, similar to how we might say the Midwest or Sub-Saharan Africa. It referred to the region inhabited by the Tartars and Mongols. It was not a single unified country, but a region of various khanates. However, theorists point to the intricate flags, the separate crests, and the sheer size of the region on old maps as proof that this was a sovereign superpower that has been erased from modern textbooks. They argue that the CIA and global governments have systematically removed Tartaria from history books to keep us ignorant of our true potential and the free energy technology our ancestors supposedly possessed. The architectural impossibility, most persuasive argument for the Tartaria theory, and the one that draws in the most casual viewers, is the eye test. Proponents ask us to look at buildings like the U.S. Capitol, the St. Isaac's Cathedral in Russia, or the elaborate opera houses of Europe. We are told these were built in the 1800s, often by people using horse and buggy transportation, with no power tools, no modern cranes, and seemingly unlimited budgets. Theorists point to photographs of the construction of these buildings and claim they look fake or staged. They argue that the official construction timelines are mathematically impossible. How could a society that was supposedly struggling with the Civil War or basic industrialization pile millions of bricks with such geometric perfection? The conclusion they reach is simple. We didn't build them. We found them. The founders of the United States were literally founders. They found a desolate, mud-flooded city, dug it out, and renamed it. The mystery of the World's Fairs, perhaps? The most haunting chapter of the Tartaria saga revolves around the worlds. Fairs of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Chicago 1893, St. Louis 1904, San Francisco 1915. Official history states that these were temporary cities, built of staff, a mixture of plaster and hemp to showcase human progress, and then demolished shortly after the fairs ended. Tartaria. Theorists look at the photos of the White City in Chicago and see something else. They see a sprawling Greco-Roman metropolis with electric waterways, massive domes, and intricate statuary. They refuse to believe these were temporary plaster casts. They argue that these were actually the remains of great Tartaria ancient cities that the elite restored for a brief victory lap before destroying them to erase the evidence. Tragic fires that seem to conveniently destroy these fairgrounds and many city archives are viewed not as accidents, but as deliberate arsenic cleaning of the crime scene. The mud, flood, and the basement windows returning to the physical evidence. The mud flood concept attempts to explain the architectural anomalies of older cities. If you walk around older neighborhoods in Seattle, London, or Moscow, you will often see windows at sidewalk level. Sometimes there are doors that seem to lead nowhere, buried half underground. Historians explain this through the raising of street levels for sewage systems, like in Chicago or Seattle, or simply the logic of letting light into basements, light wells. But to the theorist, this is evidence of a sudden, catastrophic event that raised the ground level by several meters globally. They argue that no architect would design a window to look directly into the dirt. Therefore, the ground must have risen. The psychological appeal of Tartary. Is this theory so popular right now? It has exploded on TikTok and YouTube. The answer lies in a collective sense of loss and aesthetic dissatisfaction. Modern architecture is often viewed as cold, brutalist, and cheap. We build glass boxes that last 40 years. We look at the impossible beauty of the Cologne Cathedral or the Taj Mahal, and we feel a sense of inadequacy. The Tartaria theory offers a seductive explanation. We aren't less capable. We are just a post-apocalyptic society, living in the ruins of Giant's Dot. It validates the feeling that the world is devolving rather than evolving. It taps into a deep distrust of authority in the media. If the government can lie about the present, why wouldn't they lie about the past? The skeptical reality, of course. From an academic perspective, the theory collapses under scrutiny. The Tartaria on maps was well documented by explorers who traveled there. It was not a hidden empire, but a known region of nomadic tribes and khanates. The architectural feats of the 19th century are well documented with blueprints, financial records, and construction photographs that show the progression from foundation to spire. The mud flood windows are standard architectural features designed to allow light and air into the lower levels of buildings before the advent of electricity. Furthermore, the temporary nature of worlds. Fairs is proven by the fact that the buildings often began deteriorating during the fairs themselves. We have samples of the materials. They were indeed plaster, not ancient stone. Conclusion: a myth for the modern age. The Tartaria theory is likely not historical fact, but it is a fascinating cultural phenomenon. It is a form of collective folklore, a digital myth-making exercise where people crowdsource an alternative reality that feels more magical and meaningful than the one they live in. Challenges us to look closer at our surroundings. Even if the answers they come up with are fantastical, the questions they ask are rooted in a genuine appreciation for the beauty and mystery of the past. It forces us to acknowledge that we have indeed lost something, perhaps not a global empire, but certainly the ambition and aesthetic standard that allowed our ancestors to build stone dreams that have outlasted the hands that carved them. Whether you believe in the mud flood or not, once you hear about it, you will never walk down an old city street without looking at the basement windows and wondering, what is buried down there? Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this video, learned something new, or simply want to see more content like this, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support truly helps the channel grow and reach more people. And if you have thoughts or ideas you'd like to share, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.